Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller. Real quick, for those of just joining or watching the podcast, we specialize in SaaS growth and helping B2B companies scale their revenue. We built our own AI-powered platform, which outperforms other platforms by 2 to 5x. So our clients get many more sales qualified conversations. So if you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, just make sure you stick around. Or if you're just interested in a one-on-one consult with us, just drop the word growth in the comments or DMs, and we'll be happy to jump on a call and talk to you. But let's get into our conversation today. So let me introduce Jeff Blau from Giga Holdings. Jeff, welcome today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. This is exciting. So, Jeff, let's start with your kind of journey into many companies, right? But let's, that Giga Holdings has, but certainly into the real estate and commercial real estate market. But just kind of talk to us about your background.
So I'm a real estate developer, mainly in Newark, New Jersey. We built to date around 600 units. We have another 5,000 in the pipeline. And my background is in construction. I started as a construction worker when I was 18 years old, and I've been doing it for many, many years. And at some point around 12, 13 years ago, I got into real estate, purchasing and building. And about the other companies throughout the years, basically a few years ago, the interest rates went up and it didn't make sense anymore to develop at those prices. So we started diversifying. We started buying, we didn't give up on the real estate dream, but we started buying businesses that are sitting on prime real estate. So then we have the real estate play, but we also have the cash flow play. And we bought a steel company, one of the biggest ones in the East Coast for elevator components. Then it worked out good. We bought a lumber yard and a few of those.
Amazing. So was it just kind of organically that those company acquisitions made sense to you? Right, as you started to get into obviously lumber, right? If you're doing any kind of remodel, rehab work with it, or build outs in the commercial, steel, same thing. Is that kind of organically how you did it?
Yeah. So these companies, there was a few things going for them that we liked about it. One is that it's in our industry, so we can grow the business just by our own business. That we are spending tens of millions of dollars a year on lumber. We're spending a lot of money on steel. We work with all the elevator companies. So it made sense. But we also love the real estate a lot. The real estate are in prime locations. Eventually in the future, when the rates will go down, we will probably relocate those companies and build apartment buildings over there.
Amazing. Makes perfect sense. So as you started to grow this portfolio of companies, right? Obviously it all centers on the commercial market. What have you seen, especially during the COVID shakeup? How has the commercial market, in your opinion, weathered that storm? And then kind of where do you see that going? What's your perspective?
I'll tell you, it is tough. I mean, nobody, can tell you it's not tough out there, but COVID happened and then construction prices went up. And then when finally the construction prices went down, the interest rates went up. So it's not easy. There used to be a saying, the goal is to stay alive until 25, but now we're here and we still need to push. But let's see how the interest rates will go. The goal is to keep on waiting.
Yeah. So you need the rates to come down and get you into a much more competitive landscape, correct?
That's correct. Exactly.
Yeah. So as you look forward, right? Let's say, and as you come out of this, what do you see in the industry over the next couple of years? Like, where do you see it going? Let's say the interest rates do come down, right? I know the new administration is all having impact on that. We'll see how that all shakes out. But let's say that happens. Is there? Because again, we're going back to not all the office buildings are not being fully occupied, right? We're going back to this what quote unquote hybrid model. Right? Does that mean that we're going to start converting some of these buildings to residential, like condos? Like how do you see this all shaking out?
I'll tell you, I specialize in building apartment buildings for rentals. And what I see is that our clientele are people from the age of 25 to 40, singles, young professionals, and they mainly look for community. So they look for buildings that have a lot of amenities and walkable areas. I see that people are doing the reverse trend back from the suburbs back into the cities. They want to be able to walk to a restaurant, to walk to a bar, to have a gym, a lounge, a co-working space in the building. It's more about community and
Yeah.
about converting office buildings to residential. Honestly, I still didn't find someone that figured it out. It's not so simple. The office buildings it's not so simple to convert them to residential buildings. The windows don't open, there's no balconies, the footprint is too big. It's not so simple. You have a lot of dead space. I know a few people tried to do it, but still didn't figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that makes sense. And so, unless you're in the industry, you don't think about those things, right? That you talked about, right? The unusable space, the lack of balconies, the windows not open. That's all that stuff either needs to be retrofitted or built out, which is additional costs that a lot of folks aren't really
And then,
factoring
and
into
then
that
at some
equation.
point, it's getting cheaper to just build ground up. And the thing for me as a developer in ground up, at least I know how much each square foot will cost. When you start conversions, you don't know what you're going to bump into. You don't know if you bump into asbestos, the structural problems. Again, I'll give you an example. They
Yeah,
changed the code for the elevator size. There needs to be able to fit a stretcher. Like for sick people, a stretcher in the elevator. Most old buildings, it doesn't fit. And then you go into structural problems. So you're going into problem after problem that's very hard to figure it out.
yeah, no kidding. So, if you're an owner of an older building, do you have to upfit and retro those elevators, or are you grandfathered in and you? Yeah,
You're grandfathered in unless if you change the use, like from commercial
right.
to residential, or if you're doing more than a 50% renovation, 50% of the building, if you renovate more than 50. So it's not so simple. A lot of people are trying. Listen, they'll find, the beauty about capitalism is by the end they'll find a way to do it. It's just
Yeah.
they didn't figure it out yet.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And so, pre-COVID, talk to us about what you were seeing in the industry and what obviously you were very bullish on the apartments, right? And seeing the trend. I have three daughters and they're all just post-college, right? So they're all doing exactly what you said. They're living in apartment complexes where there's all these amenities that you're referring to. So you're spot on. Did you see that early on and start to monitor that trend to get ahead of it?
I'll tell you, in the tri-state area here in New York City, this is something that I've seen for the last 20 years.
Oh, wow.
It was always about the amenities, always about the community. People that they like to be, it's location, obviously, like everything in real estate is location, but it's about the community. It's about the community.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And now, as you start to look forward for your business, right, and your all of your businesses, but definitely for the real estate component, are you thinking that? How do you see the evolution of this? Because what I'm thinking is that you have your core bread and butter, right, that you do today. Do you get into multi use complexes? What is your evolution in your mind of where you go, or do you stick to your bread and butters?
It's a good question.
Yeah,
I'm old school.
yeah,
I like to stick to what I know and what works. But we do evolve. Like where we started from real estate and we got into steel, into lumber, we do evolve and we do change and we go with the market. But I'm pretty much old school. I like to stick to what works.
yeah. I totally get that. The reason I asked that is, I follow some guys in your industry like Grant Cardone and some folks like that, and I know that his philosophy has evolved over the years. But I also had a business a long time ago in the real estate. We just stuck to our bread and butter. But you're in a whole different market in the tri-state area up there, and that's why I was wondering about your opportunities are immense, right? But that market has shifted, and so that's even a really good question, right? Let me come back to the market. How much has the market changed post COVID? Because I know, right, New York had some exodus numbers, right, and I'm guessing that opened up and had created some vacancies. How has that impacted you? And do you see that rebounding?
So I'll tell you something interesting. We always read the articles about the exodus, people leaving New York City. We don't really see it in the buildings. I don't know
Wow.
how to explain it. I'm not a statistics guy. I mean, Mark Twain once said that there's three types of lies. There's lies and big lies and statistics, something like that. I don't know if I'm quoting
Yes,
it
I know
right.
what you're talking about. And you can make stats say whatever you want, right?
Exactly. The Excel sheet can show anything. They say in real estate that the best novels were written in Excel, not in Word. Statistics can say whatever you want. I don't see it. I mean, I see it in the last 2 years. It is tougher to fill up the buildings. So by the end of the day, we filled up all of our buildings. It took us a few months longer, but we got the rents that we asked for, and our vacancy rate is very low. I can't explain it.
Yeah. Some things are just not explainable, right? They don't make sense. But you're on the ground and you have a pulse of the market. So you know, like if people are renting and you're filling up your buildings, then hey, that's what you go with, right?
Yeah, but you can also see it on the rent prices. They keep
Yeah.
going up.
Yeah. No, so is there a ceiling in your mind on the rent prices? Like at some point, does that thing cap out?
Every year we think it's capped out and then it
Yeah.
still goes up.
It's like sports salaries, right?
Exactly. I mean, this is one thing that it's one of the things that can't be replaced. People will always need a roof over their head. And if we thought that working remotely will get people out of the cities, at the end of the day, people come back to the cities because they need the community. People don't want to just get up every day and go to the kitchen and walk to the living room and walk all day and then go to the next room and go to sleep. They want to go out. They want to meet people. So even if people that work remotely, actually, they might even need it more than the people that work in the office. They want to have a community and live between other peoples. That's why the big cities, they still, doesn't matter what, they're still booming.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So talk to me about the impact, right? Our podcast is very much focused on how emerging tech is, changing the landscape in different ways. And it's not always just in your go-to-market strategy, but a lot of times it's in the services that you do or the way in which the models have changed, right? So I know real estate, the models are being disrupted by, new tech companies coming in the residential space. How about in the commercial space? Like, how is tech impacting?
So I see it a lot actually in the construction part. I see it a lot.
Really?
Yeah, for example, the interior designer or rendering or architects, it used to be I have a building I'm designing now and I want to know which color to choose. And it used to be I need to wait a few weeks until you get something with the architect. Now we just upload the picture to ChatGPT and I tell them, show me this building in red, show me this building in yellow, give it to me in bricks, give it to me in the metal facade. Then it just spits out the answers right away. So you can resolve anything in, any questions or design of a building in 15 minutes instead of 2-3 months of going back and forth.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that in other industries as well. Exactly what you're talking about. How about in the so one of the folks we had on the podcast a few weeks ago, she was telling us about how they do estimating so much better and so much more efficient. And I'm guessing in the steel and lumber, right? That stuff comes in at least with some of your vendors and your clients.
I'll give you an
right?
example. I'll give you an example in the lumberyard, for example. To price out jobs now is a click of a button. You upload the drawings and the software does the takeoffs for you. I mean, it's not something new. It's been for the last few years, but lately the cost of it went down and the accuracy went up. And it's something that now we offer it as a service to our clients through the takeoffs for them. It used to be they had to have someone in their office count how many 2x4s they need and how many every item. Now is just a click of a button.
It's amazing how quick it does that number crunching too, right? And it's pretty accurate.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's a huge time saver.
I think by now it's even more accurate than humans.
Yeah. And that's, to me, then that's a powerful tool to be introduced. And if you can save that much more time, right, you can get your shipments out faster and all that kind of stuff. And I would imagine on the logistics side, right, which you probably had for years anyway, but, maximizing routes and all that kind of stuff. But, it's only going to get more precise and more efficient with AI.
Yes. I'm waiting for
other
AI
areas?
to start building.
What's that?
What is it? I said I'm waiting for AI to start building the buildings. I know they have the 3D printing, but it's still not there. Not for the high-rise buildings,
Yeah, then we don't need to retrofit stuff. Then you just build everything from scratch, right?
Yeah.
3D printing on buildings.
Exactly.
Any other areas that you see, tech, automation, that kind of stuff impacting?
So we have actually one of my companies is a company that we do funding for small and medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
And over there, I see it a lot. And we will work with Salesforce and Power BI, and I'm not so familiar with all the things it does, all the names. We have companies, third-party companies that they implement the systems by us, but it's amazing. It's crazy the stats that we can get on default rates and what kind of term works, what industry, and the profit margins for every industry that we give funding for. Because, Brent, we give from nursing homes to restaurants to construction companies, and just to calculate the profit margins on each one of them to know how much can the client, how much can he pay back.
Afford to pay back.
The crazy calculations. It used to take us, every file, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours to underwrite. Now with all this, the tech goes down to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and we can send out an offer to a client.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that streamlines it a lot faster. How about on the underwriting side, right? So do you guys do that in-house, or is that something that you have third parties and vendors to
No,
do?
we're doing it in-house.
You got it. So does that help? I would imagine that helps them tremendously on
Of
that.
course.
Yeah, because traditionally that's where everything gets hung up, right? On any kind of lending. And so, yeah, if they're able to pull, just pulling documents, right, and crunching those and putting those into those formulas that much faster. Yeah, I would imagine that whole process is end to end streamlined.
Yeah, it's also it can tell you which industries not to touch. Sometimes you don't even realize, but then you realize that some industries the default rate is higher, but because we fund so many deals, it gets lost in the data. And on the
Right.
other hand, you can sometimes get a nasty default, from a good industry, and then in your mind you cross it out because you think that that industry is bad, but then the
Yeah, you
stats,
could
the
do 100
information.
other loans in that industry and be good, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it helps out a lot.
All right. So tell me how you're able to have it's 6 or 7 different companies. How are you managing that as the CEO?
It's a very good question. So first of all, I'm not the CEO. Every company has their own
Yeah.
C-suite, their own CEO, COO. That's
Okay.
the only way that it can work. And I overpay my guys. It's not me saying it; they're saying it. I overpay my
Yeah.
guys. I get good people, and
That's a
it's
key
about
right there, right?
it's the key. It's the good people that you have. And and the incentives. I'm only one person. I can't manage. We have over 500 employees between the companies. I can't manage it. So CEOs in every companies and COOs and CFOs, and they manage it.
So let me ask you a question, right? I know you said that you're not, especially on the real estate side, the tech isn't as impactful. But one of the questions I always ask the founders is basically your thought process, right? You know that AI is starting to change everything, right? And now you have a portfolio of companies that you're overseeing. What is your philosophy, I guess, on AI implementation across those companies? Do you meet with your different CEOs and C-suites across those companies and have some sort of strategy to implement or at least evaluate? How do you do
Yeah,
that
so
as
I'll tell you something. Anything, I don't like to be the first one in anything. Also, as a developer, I'd rather be the fifth tower coming up on the block than the first one. And the
yeah,
same goes to AI. So it depends on which industry. So, for example, in the loan business, where AI is not something new and there's fintech, going out for years already in this industry, and
yeah,
then we use it a lot. When it comes to steel and lumber, we're implementing it, but slower. I'm waiting to see how the other companies, I don't want to look like Elon Musk when talking about manufacturing. When he tried to build the Tesla mega factory, with all the automation, but then they had to rip everything out and throw it out the window because it wasn't working. I'd
right.
rather be the fifth manufacturer to do it, not the first one.
I get that. I get that. And you're right. For each of your different companies, there should be a different strategy, right? Like the business side, it's already there, right? Or the business loan side. Whereas the other ones are, yeah, but I get it. And someone else can be the pioneer, right? And then
Exactly.
make the mistakes, and then you can figure out how to piggyback on that and learn from those lessons, right?
Exactly. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the city. Let other smart people figure it out. I'll piggyback on them.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question about the tech, right? So in some of your industries, robotic process automation comes in, right? What like table saw cutting and all that kind of stuff. Does that come into play for like the steel and the lumber?
Yeah. So in the steel, definitely, we spend a lot of money, millions every year on equipment, on tables that are cutting faster, laser, water jetting. There's all this technology. We just got a table now that cuts counterweights for elevators. We get the big plates and then they
Yeah.
cut it into the counterweights. We got a machine that cuts it 7 times faster. Um, it does one job that 4 people were doing before. So we do implement it. We had some misses and we had some, it's a hit or miss. Some machines we buy and it's a miss, and some it's a hit, but we were very, very big on that.
Got it. Got it. No, and that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes when we start to talk about emerging technology, that's one of the things that gets lost And we tend to overlook that and not dig into it, but it's one of the things that's making companies like your steel company so much more efficient. And I think a lot of folks watching the podcast, that's a key point, because we've had the number of people in the manufacturing space, right, that just rave about, the capabilities of how that is just evolved.
Listen, we have no choice, especially now with the tariffs. It's going to bring back a lot of business back here to the States. And the biggest problem over here in the States is the cost of labor.
Right.
So that's something that mitigates it. And the problem also with those equipment is it takes a long time to get. We just got the delivery last month on something that we placed an order 9 months ago, 10 months ago. So this is also a factor that it takes time since you order the equipment until you get it.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, Jeff, totally makes a ton of sense. So any other unique stories that you have? I mean, with so many companies and so many deals that you've done, do you have a story or two that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Funny thing about the steel company, in the beginning was the beginning of the time when interest rates started going up, and we actually thought in the beginning to develop it. But the guy that sold it to us, he said, I'm selling you the land only if you'll keep running the company. And apparently the guy had no kids, and this was his legacy. He opened a company 42 years ago, and that was his legacy. So we started looking into it, and it actually worked out amazingly.
Yeah, and you saw the numbers, you saw the profitability, and how it fits into your suite of companies, and that makes total sense.
We kept the name, and
that would probably made him really happy too, right? The legacy continues, and
and
very, very, very cool.
Then we'd see the same thing with the lumberyard. The lumberyard was around for 65 years, and we kept the name also, and it's about. These people, it's a legacy for them. It's something that they built, their entire life. They put their whole life into it.
Yeah. And I love that you preserved it, because I mean, that's phenomenal. Not only you kept the name, but I'm sure some of the people working there and that, and it's a pride thing too, right? Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, it's amazing, Jeff, what you've built, and you're in such a competitive market, and the fact that you take care of your people and you stay true to kind of what you're doing to me, is probably the massive keys to your success. Would you agree?
100%. It's all about the people around us.
Yeah. People make the world, and it's funny. So one of the things that we say on this podcast is that we call AI digital coworkers, right? They're meant to make your good people even better. Right. And so when they use a tool, they get great at it, and it just makes them that much more efficient. It's not, to me, I never think about replacing people. I just think about how do we empower people in a much, much higher, better use, right? We can get you some of their mundane tasks out of the way so they can actually spend more time with their clients and their customers.
Right.
So, Jeff, I told you I was going to ask you at the end something that you do personally to make yourself more efficient with AI, ChatGPT, any of it. Is there something that you do, especially managing I mean, I know you're not day-to-day managing, but you still have your finger on the pulse of all six, right?
So I'll tell you actually one thing that I don't know if that means for efficiency, but I'll give you an example. I had a building that burned down. We finished building it, and the day before it was 100% occupied. The last tenant was supposed to move in. Some tenant went on the roof, and he had a barbecue grill, and he dropped it, and a coal was sitting there for a few hours and burnt the entire rooftop. Don't ask. The whole building got damaged. I had to evacuate everybody. And since then, I hired a monitoring company, where they're using AI to monitor the cameras. And then basically, if it happens again, they see it in a second. And in another building, like 2 months after that, a guy left a cigarette on the rooftop, and smoke started to come out of one of the plants over there. And the AI figured it out in a second. And it saved the entire building. If not, it would be the same as the first one.
You can't have your tenants burning your buildings down, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So we're using it now in all of our buildings. We're using this monitoring system that they monitor if somebody is too long at some location. They monitor if a dog is taking a leak on the rooftop or somewhere. Like, they monitor everything with AI, which is amazing.
That's really cool. And how many other founders and CEOs that are, part of this podcast have similar things, right? Maybe not in residential. They have, buildings and camera systems, right? And that AI, that's a really smart thing to be able to detect things that fast. Jeff, this is really, really cool. So I'm sure there's going to be some people on the podcast also want to see some of your buildings or get in touch with you guys, and we'll put all the links below. But Are your buildings usually like if someone wants to think about renting in one of your buildings, is it on the website? Where do they go?
Sure. It's on the website.
On Giga Holdings?
On gigaholdings.com, yeah.
Okay, excellent. We'll put all those links. Jeff, thank you for spending a half hour with us. We really appreciate your time. I love this industry. I love what you do. I think there's lots of folks that do. But what I also love is how you treat your people across all these companies and how they're cohesive groups. That's really a testament to you and your leadership.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Brent.
Yeah. Well, hey, like I said, thank you for spending the time with us. That wraps up this episode of the Future Proof Podcast, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, take care. Thank you.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.